Of the plan board's order. I apologize for the delay. We were having some technical difficulties, but we're going to go ahead and get started. Mr. Castillo, would you mind doing the roll call for us?
Stephanie Sutton,
Here.
Bob Ackerman,
Here.
Thomas Hawkins,
Here.
James Blythe,
Here.
Sophia Corgetto,
Here.
Jason Hurst,
Here.
Joshua Ney, Tina Certain.
Great, thank you. And do I have a motion to adopt the agenda this evening or any discussion on the agenda? Where are my lights? Hold on, sorry. Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I know we got some of the materials by email on Monday. I wasn't checking on the website, so I don't know when they were first made available to the public. Although presumably it was after we received them Monday. And then I know that the CA Ventures item wasn't available until at least Tuesday at the earliest. Mm-hmm. And I've had the general concern that we weren't getting materials up in a timely fashion for people to be aware of what we're considering at our meetings. And one of the things that I was thinking might be a good solution to this in general would be to ask the City Commission to change our rules to require us to post the materials at least a week ahead of time. And when I was reading our rules to refresh my recollection as to what they said, one of the things that I recalled that I didn't know from memory is that if members of the public want to register as affected parties to come to our meetings, we require them to register 7 days ahead of time, which of course folks can't do if our agenda is not even published until 2 days before the meeting. Right? Clearly nobody, that's 5 days after the end date by which people are required to register. Mm-hmm. So I want to use our time productively, and it seems like a waste of time to get us all together and not hear items. But I also am torn with this issue that it's fundamentally not fair to hear issues that affect folks when there's just not adequate time for people to view them. So I want to see how y'all, maybe in particular regarding the stuff that didn't come out until Tuesday, we consider postponing to the next meeting. How do we? I guess the question is, what do y'all want to do, and specifically regarding the course of action, maybe continuing the last items that didn't come in until Tuesday and asking for a rule amendment to require us to publish our agenda and backup. If we're going to require members of the public to register 7 days before, maybe we're required to publish it 10 days before the hearing. So that way people have 3 business days to review and decide if they want to register. Those are my thoughts. I'm interested in hearing what y'all think.
Okay, Mr. Ackerman.
I agree with Mr. Hawkins. I have an additional quack, which I have communicated periodically this week, which is that until Tuesday or Wednesday, we were not listed on Legistar as even having a meeting scheduled. So nobody even knew we were having a meeting. So all the people that come and tell us that we're doing all this stuff in secret, even though it's on television, this time nobody even knew. Now we do meet every the 4th Thursday of every month, but I don't understand why, you go to look and there's nothing there. That people tend to think there's no meeting. And then the secondary issue is the fact that we didn't even get backup for items until Tuesday, I think. I know the last item we got Tuesday or Wednesday, and nobody else has seen it, I don't think. And that concerns me since it's clearly going to be an item of interest. So I don't, unlike Mr. Hawkins, I don't think we need a rule. We just need to do it. I mean, we used to be able to do it. We just need a commitment that we're going to get this stuff done and published a week ahead of time, so everybody, including us, I'm the only one that's retired. Everybody else has got other things to do, without having a dump of backup. And this week, even I was busy doing God knows what. So I don't really know what to propose for this, but, and I'm with Mr. Hawkins, I don't wanna waste a bunch of time and all these people. On the other hand, fundamental fairness strikes me that, you know, at least the major item at the end, we ought to defer until next month. The others are kind of work-a-day. I don't know that anybody cares about them. It's just so, you know, kind of the housekeeping the plan board does for these things. There's no major projects in there really. But the last one is a big one, and it seems like people should have a right to hear it, read it before.
That was the majority of the emails that we got. That was the first thing that they said. So
Right.
I
And-
tend to agree with that.
Yeah, Madam Chair, the last items you probably read through or started to read through the staff report. It's about 300 pages, so it's
Yes.
pretty significant.
Yeah, it's 318 pages.
It
too.
was
I
a
meant
lot to
mention
get
that.
2
Right.
days before the meeting.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people that asks that we have it at minimum the Friday before.
Right.
Because I have a job and kids and things that
Yeah, everybody
I have
likes
to
to
have it
review
over the
stuff.
weekend to look at it.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to review massive backup. It's difficult for the public to know, you know, we can email you and call you and say, where's the backup and when are we getting this? And sometimes get it via email before it's posted online, but the public doesn't have that opportunity. And so I tend to agree with Mr. Hawkins. I don't know if we need a formal rule change, you know, if that's necessary. It does seem like, you know, we've typically, you know, I've been on the board a long time, and typically it's been about a week. Usually it's the week before.
Yep.
But you know, I would be okay with 7 days versus 10 days. I agree with the affected parties. Maybe there's something else that makes sense. But we need to do something because this has been an ongoing problem. We've brought it up at multiple meetings. So, you know, I would be in favor of continuing or, you know, delaying the last item. I don't think that it's fair to hear it, especially when some of the emails were saying, you know, they were neighbors that maybe didn't even get notice for the neighborhood meeting either. So this is really the first information they're getting, which is another, you know, issue that we can hash out. But I would be in favor of delaying that item, and, you know, would be open to hearing, you know, a suggestion for a rule change if staff thinks that that's necessary to formalize it.
I would say, I mean, it's up to the board. I think we you know, our goal is to try to get the agenda with all the backup published a week before. You know, if there was a rule that would maybe help with applicants, obviously sometimes, you know, we have extraneous circumstances that do come up on both sides. You know, if it's a private petition or on staff side, sometimes those things come up. I don't think a rule would, you know, hurt anything. But again, I think that's our goal, is always to get it out 7 days in advance. Sometimes it doesn't work that way. So, but I do think that, you know, for staff's perspective, we're good with if you decide to continue the last two items. The remainder of the agenda was posted Monday around, I think, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, somewhere around there. It's just the last two items were posted late.
And following up on Mr. Ackerman's point as to Legistar and the posting of the agenda there, is it possible to post the agenda there as soon as the items are confirmed and the summaries are confirmed, even without the backup listed, and maybe the backup gets there 7 days before? But I agree. I mean, people don't even know we're having a meeting.
Yeah.
So I'd like to have the agenda there, even if it doesn't have the links to the backup. At least it shows up in the calendar. And you can see the list of items and the location.
Right.
You know, you get the summary of the item, maybe just not all the backup
Right.
until it's ready. But I'd like to explore doing that proactively 2 weeks before the meeting.
Yeah, in the past, we've gotten our agenda posted, even if it didn't have backup, and it frequently didn't, but at least it had an address and a brief description of what the petition was about.
Right.
And I think we ought to continue to start doing that, and not having us on Legistar at all is, you know,
Yeah.
somebody needs to go talk to the clerk if it's the clerk's fault, or Somebody needs to talk to you if it's your fault.
Yeah, we'll raise the issue. There's a couple of things, not to, and I know this is like inside baseball, not to belabor it, but as you all remember, or those of you who are on the board, we used to post agendas on our own website, and we didn't use Legistar before, and that's where we had it was a lot easier to post agendas and then add backup. Legistar is not quite that easy, but that's all to say that the city we're getting rid of Legistar. We're actually moving to a new legislative management software called eScribe, and so these are things that we're talking with the clerk's office about in terms of what we need for boards. I can explore with staff, the idea of trying to post a draft agenda beforehand until we're off of Legistar. My understanding is it's just sort of a pain in the butt with Legistar, but we hear you. We'll explore that and get back with you.
Well, and it's not us, it's all these people.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, and I know that there is a draft agenda when you send the notices out. So like when notices go out, agenda should be posted. Like in my mind, it makes sense that those things happen concurrently. And then if the backup isn't totally available, that's okay. But it needs to be more than 2 days before the meeting.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I'm willing to make a motion.
Okay, Mr. Hawkins had his light on.
Maybe you can.
I'm sorry, you go at it.
Madam Chair, I would like to move that the City Plan Board adopt the proposed agenda with 4 modifications. 1, I propose that we continue item 211148, which is the future land use item for CA Ventures, to the next meeting. The second modification is that we continue item 211149 to the next meeting, which is the zoning for the CA Ventures item. The third is I would like to add a new item as the last item in new business before information items, which is discuss plan board rules. And we can talk and we can see what we want to do when we get to that. And then the fourth modification is if anybody, there's one that actually requires us to be part of the agenda adoption, but I think it would be helpful for members of the public. If anybody would like to speak to the CA Ventures item, then we just let them have 3 minutes during the public comment portion of the meeting that comes at the beginning.
Certainly. I think usually when we introduce that, we say for items not on the agenda, which that one will no longer be. So I agree with that. Okay. Do we have a second for Mr. Thomas's motion? Mr. Hurst. Any discussion of that by anyone else? Okay. All those in favor of the motion to adopt the agenda with the 4 changes, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, great. We will move on with our modified agenda. Can I get a motion for approval of the minutes from the March meeting? And for those of you, as Mr. Hawkins mentioned, if you do want to comment on that item, we will have public comment shortly. So
Or you
you
can
can
come
stay
back.
or you can come back next month. Thank you. The CA Ventures item, we continue to the meeting next month, which will be, actually, it's not on here. Does anyone know that date off the top of their head?
The 4th Thursday of the month.
It'll be the 4th Thursday of May. We did not discuss it ahead of time with them. But I believe staff may have made them aware it was a possibility because of the delay in the materials.
Oops.
Yes, during public comment, which will be in just a moment. Yes, you can comment on the item that got continued in just a few steps. We just need to adopt the minutes first, and then we'll be at public comment shortly. So feel free to stay and give us your thoughts.
I move approval of the minutes from the March 2022 meeting.
Okay, a second
Second.
for the minutes.
Second.
All of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next up, Mr. Castillo, can you read the announcement into the record?
Section 30-3.3 of the Land Development Code establishes the Land Board the Plan Board, including its membership, rules of procedure and functions, powers, and duties. The Plan Board is advisory to the City Commission on most planning petitions. Appeals of Plan Board decisions concerning special use permits are to a hearing officer within 30 calendar days of the decision. See Section 30-3.58C of the Land Development Code. The procedure for an appeal is set forth in Section 30-3.58.
Thank you. Next up is public comment. So if for anyone wishing to speak to items not on the agenda this evening, and we're going to include that last item that just got continued, please step up, announce your name for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes.
Madam Chair, I'd like to speak to 2 items now not on the record. Can I have 5 like they give at the City Commission?
They're related, and they're going to come back next month. So
They're not related.
The last 2 items?
Those are related, but the 2 items that I'm speaking to are not related.
Okay, yes, you can have 5 minutes then.
Thank you. I'm Robert Mounts, and the first item I'd like to speak to will come up probably at the next meeting. It's the inclusionary zoning proposal, which will consolidate all residential districts into one and allow up to quadruplexes throughout all those residential districts with no occupancy limit. And thank you, Madam Chair, for passing out my op-ed on that, which appeared yesterday on Gainesville.com and will be in Sunday's paper. It's the second one I've written. Unfortunately, don't like to write about local issues that much, frankly, but it's really on behalf of my former neighborhood in University Park. And I just want to say, I want to repeat what's in the article. You may have already seen it, but this proposal might well work some places. I will acknowledge that. But context is everything. And in Gainesville, with what, 140,000, 150,000 permanent residents, over 70,000 students competing for housing close to the university, it's a context that really I ask you not to ignore, because the impact on those neighborhoods close to the university, which include threatened African-American neighborhoods like Porter's Quarters and Pleasant Street, especially now with the new Blount Center opening for Santa Fe College, there's going to be more and more pressure just to build student apartments and not affordable housing. And the second thing I would like to say about that is a lot of people are concerned about what are the workshops going to be like. There's 3 that have been announced. They're housing workshops, not specifically targeted on this proposal, although we think they should be. And we wish that city commissioners would actually be there to hear the public directly. But there's really little information coming yet as to how they'll be conducted. If it's a repeat of what the 4 workshops that were done in 2018, that would be not sufficient. This thing is probably set on 3 minutes. I'm going to ignore it.
Yep.
So anyway, that's on that point. The second article is the one that actually I wrote almost 5 years ago, just after the 2017 Comprehensive Plan Land Development Code was approved. And this was in June of 2017, and I'm just going to read part of it because it's still timely now. Those still seeking to shape the new code may be better advised to seek expansion of setback requirements and elimination of planned developments. In my view, the taller the building, the greater the need for adequate setbacks in public spaces. The availability of the planned development process to well-funded developers with political clout is what got us the standard. It allows them to negotiate all kinds of exceptions and waivers rather than simply complying with the same rules as everyone else. And that's what Greg Stetz is asking you for. And his very long, very detailed, very revealing letter, developer to developer. I'm anxious to see the battle of the titans on this issue. But I also said, under the new code, the purpose of planned development zoning is to recognize unique conditions, allow design flexibility, and promote diversification integrated of uses and structures that other zoning districts cannot accommodate, while retaining this Commission's authority to establish such limitations and regulations as it deems necessary. And all building, housing, and land use codes theoretically apply to a plan development, except to the extent they conflict with an approved plan development. A plan development application may only be approved if it is consistent with the comprehensive plan as opposed to compliant with it. Thus, the process remains ripe for concessions, waivers, and variances, all in the name of flexibility. And our experience shows that, unfortunately, the commission still falls all over itself, and sometimes, as do you, to give a variance, to give an upzoning, to give another floor, and so forth. And that's the one big exception to the rules and standards that they like to say we're complying with in the land development code, and where everything is subject to negotiation. So I stand with Greg Stetz in opposing that project. Thank you.
Thank you,
for the
Mr.
time.
Mounds. Any other members of the public?
Evening,
Good evening.
Jane Brown-Holton, good to see you all. I'd like to speak about the single-family zoning issue in the workshops, because I'd ask that the 69 recognized neighborhoods be notified, considered in the whole process, because most people don't get informed in this town. The newspaper's expensive. There are very few ways to get the word out, other than, I suppose, websites or Facebook or Nextdoor. So I requested that 69 neighborhoods be informed. And since I'm one of them as a representative, I haven't had anything yet. So I can assure you it hasn't been done. Excuse me. So that's of great importance to me. I'm also terribly concerned about how this city is just running. It's a Wild West with absolutely no holes barred. Throwing away out, for example, setbacks, just building at any height. It's just like it's a crazy place, and I'm happy, and I'm very unhappy with it. And I think many people in this city are. And getting our voice out is not easy, but we appeal to you and we appeal to the commission, and I just can't understand the rationale of why anyone would do a no holes barred Wild West plan on a lovely university town. I just don't understand it, because we're not holding to any limits. Nothing's being held to. Everything is by variation or negotiation, or, I mean, I've tried to do things with planners on some of the projects, and all they tell me is it doesn't go to the Development Review Board, it meets code. So there's no input from a Development Review Board or any group that say, wait a minute, this could be adjusted, this could be improved. There's no input from anybody, from citizens, from people who live right next door. So it's very upsetting to me, and to many of us. And I don't know what we can do about it, because this no-hold-bars Wild West approach, I think, is destroying our beautiful city. So I'd like to hope that there'll be some more rationale in how things are being done here. I'd really appreciate that, and I'm sorry I've lost my voice. But thank you for listening. And also on the policy thing, I'd love to have a firm policy like 2 weeks before and all those other things. I think it's very hard. I mean, I raced here. I heard about this about 20 minutes ago before the meeting, so it'd be very nice. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you. I believe that there are some of these flyers with the workshop dates. It looks like there's some over on that table.
Yes, I took one.
Yeah, feel free to take
But I
one of
haven't been
those.
mailed one, and I'm a representative of one of the 69 neighborhoods, and I don't know if we've had anything. I'm not aware.
I think that's a good suggestion, and we can work with staff
Right.
about what the outreach
And
plan
also,
is.
I think it needs to be kept to the topic. I mean, I haven't had no opportunity to discuss setbacks with anyone. These meetings are not going to allow anyone to sit down and like really go through and discuss and communicate why the setbacks are 5 and 10 feet. I mean, that's what we would like to have, is discussed. I think it was A through G. And there's no opportunity to do that when with these broad workshops. And I think it's A through G needs to be hammered out. Each single one needs to be analyzed, put under a microscope and looked at. It's what's the rationale? Why are we giving away everything? I don't understand. So anything you can do, I greatly appreciate. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Step up and please state your name.
Hi, my name is Jenny Tucker. This is my first time to speak in any public hearing. I have been a resident in Gainesville for more than 20 years. I'm so concerned about the proposed development in the University Heights, that is the proposed 12-story building, that I want to speak for the first time in public. And I have sent an email to the City Plan Board. If you don't mind, I would like to read the email I wrote. My family has greatly enjoyed living in this beautiful, special college town for over 20 years. And this town, we are very proud that has been preserving the heritage while expanding and growing. We have proudly introduced the town, the downtown area, the Duck Pond neighborhood, and the historically preserved houses to our friends and visitors. And I'm very deeply concerned about the petition PB 21 and 00219 LUC, which proposed to create a high-rise building in the residential area within 2 blocks to the UF campus. This proposed project would destroy the unique beauty of Gainesville and the delicate balance between heritage and growth that the city has been working really hard for the past half a century. The several blocks south of University Avenue and east of Northwest 13th Street have traditionally been the heritage residential area with memories and legends for generations of students and their parents, for faculty members and their offspring. Some people even return to these historically preserved houses many years later to share their stories. I think the city understands the uniqueness of this peacefully and beautifully preserved residential area and has designated many homes in this area as houses for historic preservation. It's hard to imagine what those beautiful homes will look like when the sunlight for those homes are blocked by the high-rise buildings. High-rise buildings can be in many places, can be in many areas in the city. I don't think they belong to this residential area just within 2 blocks to the UF campus. The historically preserved houses in this area are unique and irreplaceable. Once destroyed, this heritage cannot be reversed. As a very concerned Gainesville resident, I strongly oppose this petition, this proposed project, and I hope the city will reject the petition and consider the voice of the residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak?
My name is Andrew Kiesick. I'm president of Kinetic Properties. We own about an acre and a half right next to this proposed 12-story project. I had a lot of things to talk about and let you know and my thoughts, and I'm a little perturbed that y'all came and voted that it was closed and they didn't show up. So is there any way you could put it online so that I'll know if you're going to cancel it ahead of time? I missed one of my daughter's games to come to this. So
I apologize. It was an issue of notice, as you heard we discussed.
Well,
So-
I know y'all voted on it, but I know they weren't here. I know all of them. And they didn't show up. So they knew
We
nothing
can't
was
make
happening.
any decisions until we're all here, and the applicant is here, and they weren't for all of that discussion, but I think they've caught the gist of what happened at this
Yeah.
point. I
So,
see nods, so,
Okay. Well, I'll come to the next meeting and give my opinion there. All right,
great,
thank you.
thank you. You're also always welcome to email us. We do get our emails before meetings, so that's always a possibility for people who want to share their thoughts and can't be here with us. Any other members of the public that wish to speak about an item not on the agenda or one of the items that was continued? Okay. If you're here to speak about one of the other items on the agenda, we'll ask that you speak after staff makes the presentation. We'll have a time for public comment after each of the other items. Okay, thank you. Ms. Boyce.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Plan Board members, staff. I represent CA Ventures, which had items 6 and 7, the last on the agenda tonight. One is quasi-judicial, one is legislative. I am seriously concerned about what happened here this evening. We had somebody monitoring your meeting. We were literally a block away, taken quite by surprise with no notice, no warning that these items were going to be continued. I'm here to tell you, my clients and the architect have flown in from Texas, Atlanta, and Chicago, and they're here this evening. And this is patently unfair when you have a proper application before you and a staff recommendation for approval to out of the box continue the item in the fashion that you did it. And if I sound like I'm in a reprimand mode, I'm sorry. I am that concerned. I think the fair thing, and then to compound that, you allowed people to talk about a quasi-judicial item in public comment outside of the hearing, which, as you know, decisions on quasi-judicial items, that being the zoning portion, may only occur within the confines of a properly convened hearing. You are bound to consider only matters that come up in the hearing. We think the entire record of this has now been tainted. The only thing you can do this evening is to go forward with your agenda. If you get to us and it's late in the evening, typically that's when we talk about continuing. We don't do parliamentary games and knock items off the agenda. We don't do that in the city of Gainesville. That's not fair play. So at this point, we'd request that you reconsider the vote you took in our absence. We are here, fully prepared to present. We have a very brief presentation. Like I said, staff has recommended approval. You've had public comment. If you need to continue to take additional public comment, that would be appropriate, but you should hear the item this evening. Thank you.
I do appreciate your concern, and I'm not sure how much of our discussion that you heard, but part of our worry about hearing that item is that affected parties did not even see the notice of the meeting in time to register as an affected party, which I don't believe is proper. So unless someone wants to make a motion to change the decision, I think we've already made that vote and decided.
Well, Madam Chair, may I inquire for the record exactly what the notice issue was with affected parties?
So
Because we did a mail out.
our agenda was not posted online, not even a blank agenda without backup, and we did not receive this backup on this item until late Tuesday. And it was more than 300 pages, which is a significant amount of information for us to review in
And,
48 hours.
About 150 pages of that consists of 2 reports that have been in the city records for years.
The
So
members
bulk-
of this board did not receive it until Tuesday at the end of the day.
The Sunshine Law in Florida does not require an agenda at all. It requires minutes and advance notice. Mailed notice was provided to all affected parties timely. That was received. We have the mailing list on file, part of our presentation this evening. There is no notice issue. And if you look at the case law under the Sunshine Law, agendas are not required. You must do minutes of your meeting and give advance notice of meeting. That's it. Agendas are courtesy matters. So whether you posted the agenda or not does not create a due process issue.
We don't have anyone here from the city attorney's office this evening. I'm
Can we call Sean? Can we get him on Zoom?
not sure.
This is
if we
extremely
can.
important to my client.
I don't think that we can.
I
I'm
don't,
very
Sound like we
disappointed,
can.
very disappointed in how my clients have been treated.
I'm
Thank you.
sorry. Mr. Hawkins.
I am not the board's attorney, and I don't want to sound like the board's attorney, but I am very strongly of the opinion that we did exactly what the best thing to do was in circumstances.
You're welcome to speak to the city attorney. I apologize that they aren't here. I think that it's probably a good idea for them to be here next month for that item. If we can request that Sean's here, I would suggest that. Mr. Diedenbach.
Yes, we were, Jared, CHW Professional Consultants, we were over at the top and we were monitoring and we heard that you were talking about it. And so we actually left the architect to pay the check. That wasn't the intent, but we ran over here as quickly as we could. Another thing I'd like to question is, would you all consider a special meeting? Time is always of the interest in projects, especially when they have deliverable dates on it. Now that you have the materials, is there a way that you would consider perhaps a special meeting in May to allow Tommy to come back from Chicago and Pierre from Atlanta and the team here from Texas? Would you consider perhaps a special agenda in May? It seems like you had a fairly healthy filled room, because I was coming in as people were exodusing.
I'm not inclined to support that idea, but I'm open to discussion from the board. I think, with notice and everything, you're not going to get a special meeting that much earlier. We have a hard time getting the room. I don't know how feasible that is. At this point, we can continue it to a date certain, which I think is better for members of the public.
Yeah, and I don't know what your May agenda holds. Perhaps Andrew or Juan know.
Oh, it's a pretty full agenda.
May's full also. Yeah.
It's very full.
Okay.
But it is what it is. So
Yeah.
you'll be coming as old business. I would imagine your item will be first on that agenda.
Well, that would be a help, because again, with people flying in from out of state, getting everybody coordinated at the same time is sometimes challenging.
And they can still participate on Zoom as well. So
Well, we'd like the architects to be able to speak in person now that we're back in the room.
would anyone else like to speak before we move on to our items of new business this evening? Okay. With that, Mr. Castillo, can you read the first item into the record, please?
First item, new business 211150, rezoning from conservation to single-family residential. Petition PB-22-00013, zone Bilal Ahmad Kaskar and Diba Nisar Keshwari. Request to rezone two properties from conservation to single-family residential, RSF1, located on Southwest 16th Avenue, west of South Main Street. And I'll be the one doing that presentation.
Great.
Good evening, City Plan Board members. For the record, my name is Juan Castillo. I am a planner for the Department of Sustainable Development. The item before you this evening is a privately initiated petition by Bilal Ahmad Kaskar and Diba Nisar Kashwari, and it's the second of two related petitions, the first in this on the order of our agenda today, for a set of properties located on Southwest 16th Avenue, west of South Main Street. The property is located within the Kirkwood subdivision. The total size of the properties are 1.27 acres. The properties are currently vacant and not improved with split zoning designations of single-family residential, RSF1, and conservation. The proposal is to remove the split zoning designations on these properties and to extend the existing single-family residential zoning to the portion that is currently zoned conservation. I'll show you here. The extension of single-family residential across the property will allow for the potential development of an otherwise vacant property with single-family detached homes. Staff has visited the site and has received an environmental assessment and has found that there currently exists no sensitive environmental sites, such as wetlands, on the conservation portion of the subject property. Staff has reviewed the request before you and has found that it meets the review criteria stated in our land development code and is consistent with our comprehensive plan goals. The full list of review criteria can be found in the associated report. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of the proposed rezoning before you this evening. And as a quick note, I did notice that the zoning came before the land use, so if you'd like to hear the land use presentation before you take a vote, that can also be used.
I just thought about that too when I saw the title slide. I thought that was interesting. I do think that's typically how we hear things as far as the order goes. I don't know if it's significant that we hear the land use first. I would say definitely when it goes to the city commission, I would recommend putting them in land use and zoning order. I'll leave it to the board if we want to hear both presentations and do separate votes, or if we want to just move ahead with the zoning. Does anyone have thoughts on that? I'm comfortable either way, as long as we straighten it out by the city commission. Okay.
I'm comfortable either way, but I'm with Madam Chair, we ought to do the land use first. You're applying zoning to implement the land,
Yeah,
right, so.
yeah. Okay, why don't we see if there's public comment, and then maybe hear the land use, take public comment, and maybe we can just make the motions in the right order? Does everyone feel comfortable with that? Hear both items? We used to do that sometimes, combine presentations and things, so, yeah, why don't we just hear both items, and we'll just do the motions in the right order, if that's okay with everyone. All right.
I have one
Mr.
question
Ackerman.
for Mr. Castillo. There was not a really explanation in the backup as to why this little tail of conservation is there. And so I would just like to know why we have a little piece of conservation that apparently has no items that need to be conserved on it. And obviously, we're not killing the whole thing. The other parcels still have this little tail. So I'm trying to figure out how it came about. Any insight into that?
Sure. So there's a time where the conservation, land use, and zoning were used as buffers between higher density developments and single family developments. And so that is, staff is believe that that's one of the reasons why this is here now.
Okay, so this is really just a buffer,
Right.
without any significant. The report that we read said there's no significant ecological items there worthy of conservation.
Correct, and staff has gone on site as well and verified that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay. Any public comment on this item, on the zoning, and we're going to hear the land use next before we take a vote. Step right up.
Jane Bowman-Holtam, hopefully I've got a better voice now. Kirkwood had conservation all the way around it. It was platted in the 1940s. It was in the county, not the city. And I represent the neighborhood. The concern here about this lot is that we also had a development at the other end of the street, which had an access or egress to 16th. And the neighborhood's very concerned about any access or ingress from traffic from 16th coming within the neighborhood. This strip of land conservation is because that is not connected to the streets. The land in question probably was part of the old Kirkwood, because you can't actually get to the street without that strip. So basically that's a strip of land that gives ingress and egress to that area of land that is being rezoned. Does that make sense? You see, if you look at the way the houses are designed in the street, there wasn't any ingress or egress to that area without this strip of land.
The one parcel at the end isn't on the road. is what you're saying, its access is on 16th.
This one,
Mm-hmm.
the parcel in question is not actually attached to the road. Without that. It's not, there's no access to the road without the strip. The concern for the neighborhood is that whatever happens, that there not be some kind of curb cut or ingress or egress from 16th Street. And I don't know how that works. I'm sorry, I'm not a lawyer, and it's not my area of expertise. But I know they plan to have quite a multitude of houses on that piece of land, and we're concerned about ingress and egress to protect the neighborhood. On the other end, what we did was we split the access and gave it half to each person, so it was taken away. Does that make sense? I think that's what you can do with that. You just split it. So I don't know what the person has in mind, because I haven't had a chance to talk to them about this, but I have no idea what they have planned, other than lots of little houses or whatever they have. But that's our main concern, would be the traffic that might occur. But otherwise, it's landlocked, unless you go to 16th. So I hope I've explained that. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Any other comments on this petition?
Hi, I just wanted to comment on the fact that you guys were talking about how this is supposed to be a intermission area between like big story or multi-story apartments and single family housing. So if that's the case, couldn't you turn it into like a duplex? Something like that? Just a suggestion.
Thank you. Any other comments on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to staff for the land use presentation, if that's okay, and then we'll
I was just
continue.
gonna comment on what the
Sure.
previous. This land is all owned by a single landowner. It's just got split zoning. So all we're doing is making the zoning all the same. It also is, I think, an acre and a third. They're asking for single families, so they're not gonna exactly have dozens of houses on an acre and a third. 5, you think? Well, are you the developer?
No, no. I was just making a suggestion because it sounded like there's some people in here who are.
Step up to the microphone so we capture if you're.
I was saying that there were people in here who were upset about large buildings in a historical area. And I didn't realize that it was just one person with one house. So, I mean, I think that that's fine, but I was just saying if it were like for multiple purposes, then it could be for a duplex instead of a single family with 2. Yeah, that was just my suggestion. But.
Thank you. You can always add accessory dwelling units. Okay, sir, I saw you stand up. Did anyone else want to speak to this item before we move on to the land use? Okay, Mr. Castillo, would you mind reading the land use item into the record and giving that presentation?
Item number 211151, amend future land use map from conservation to single family. That's the petition PB-22-00023 LUC, Bilal Ahmad Kaskar and Diva Nisar Kashwari requests to amend the City of Gainesville future land use map for 2 properties from conservation to single family, located on Southwest 16th Avenue, west of South Main Street. Okay, good evening again. For the record, my name is Juan Castillo. I'm a planner for the city of Gainesville's Department of Sustainable Development. The item before you this evening is a privately initiated petition by Bilal Ahmad Kashkar and Dibar Nisar Kashfari. It is the first of two related petitions for a set of properties located on Southwest 16th Avenue, west of South Main Street. The total size of the land, as I previously mentioned, is 1.27 acres. The properties are currently vacant and not improved with split land use designations of single family and conservation. The proposal is to remove the land use portion of design as conservation and to extend the existing single family land use and then instead, of course, instead of the conservation portion, extend the single-family land use that's there. The extension of the single-family land use across the properties will allow for the potential development of single-family detached homes to an otherwise vacant property. Staff has visited the site and has received and reviewed the environmental assessment and has found that there currently exists no sensitive environmental areas such as wetlands on the conservation portion of the subject property. Staff has reviewed the request before you and has found that it meets the review criteria stated in the Land Development Code and is consistent with the comprehensive plan goals. The full list of review criteria can be found in the associated report. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of the petition before you this evening. Thank you, and I'm here for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board for staff? Okay. Any public comment on this item? This is the related land use.
Thank you. I don't understand how curb cuts work, so we're concerned about any ingress or egress into 16th. I don't know if staff could address that or how that works. Should there be a plan for a curb cut to 16th, then we would like to retain the conservation element which stops the ingress or egress into the neighborhood. Does that make sense? That's what we did the last time, is if you develop, you don't want an opening into the neighborhood. So that is the only opening from that land into the neighborhood. So either we request it stays a conservation or request there be no curb cut. And I don't know which way we're allowed to go or request. So I'm sorry I don't know about curb cuts.
So unfortunately at this time, we can't put a condition on the zoning that doesn't allow curb cuts. That's gonna be an issue that comes up with Public Works staff when they submit a plan. If they are submitting just a single family house plan, it'll be just, showing where the driveway is. If they submit the larger area as a site plan, Public Works staff will tell them where they would like to see the connections. But that's after they have the land use and zoning. So it's a different step in the process. If you were noticed for this item, okay, I would suggest contacting Public Works probably, or maybe one of the planners can connect you to the right person. Planning can let you know if a petition comes in, but when a site plan or a building permit comes in is when that is decided. The land use and zoning is all that we're doing right now, and we cannot set conditions on where the curb cuts are. 16th may actually be a DOT roadway, and so to connect to 16th, it is expensive and quite a process to work with DOT. I would imagine if it was the developer's choice, they would try to avoid that just because of the expense that's required in the process of working with DOT for just a few houses. But City Public Works, will decide when it comes through if they want a second connection or not.
So
There currently isn't a connection between that lot and Kirkwood.
No.
Well,
But
you can't just bulldoze through somebody else's land to get a connection to Kirkwood.
No, it fronts on the road in Kirkwood.
That's an abrogated right-of-way.
Yeah, but presumably that's how they'll access the property.
I'm sorry?
Presumably that the
little strip
shaped parcel is how they will access the property.
Yeah, we just don't have control over future access issues at the rezoning and land use stage.
Well, that's the concern for us, is they either hold to that so they can't get in, or if we can do something about a curb cut, we're a bit stuck. So it's a neighborhood concern and issue.
Okay.
We already have 5 entrances and exits, and we certainly don't want one onto 16th, which is a truck route, a whole bunch of traffic and all those other such things.
I think
So,
we understand your concern.
Good,
I
okay.
don't know that there's.
You can do much.
We can do about it right now, unfortunately, because we aren't making decisions about where the access is going to be this evening. We're just
No.
looking at the land use and zoning and whether it makes sense to change the strip of conservation to single family or leave it as conservation.
Now, are we talking about the strip as in the little entrance?
The little green piece along the side, Mr. Castillo, can you go back to the current map? To be honest, even if we leave the conservation zoning, they
Doesn't
could
help.
still develop the rest of the area and they could still have a curb cut to 16th, even if we leave it this way. The conservation zoning is not preventing that, except for in that little piece of conservation zoning, they can't put a road. But they could put it in the single family of the same parcel. So, you know, we aren't making that decision this
Well, you
evening.
can't,
I think
yeah.
it's a subsequent decision that's gonna be made when plans come in for review.
Okay, so the contact should be with DOT and with whom else?
So Public Works and
Public Works.
planning
Okay.
staff,
We're strongly opposed to anything going ingressing, whatever it's called,
okay, thank you,
from 16th.
thank you.
Thank you
We-
so
We
much.
understand,
Yes.
it's just not in our control this evening
Gotcha.
to put that
Yes.
condition
Yes.
on the future development.
Madam Chair, if I may, if
Yes.
you'd like to jot down your name and an email address, I can take that from you and then I can connect it with Public Works.
Yes, that would be very much appreciated, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thanks very much. I'll give it
Okay.
to you. Thanks.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this item? Okay, seeing none, bringing it back to the board for discussion or a motion, preferably the land use motion first.
I had a question, Madam Chair,
Yeah, go
for
ahead.
Mr. Castillo. I don't know what's going to happen here, obviously, but presume they were going to develop it with some single-family houses. Have they talked about doing a minor subdivision at all? And then I don't know the thresholds for when that comes to a public hearing versus staff level approval item, but I mean that might be the decision that Ms. Berman Holton's interested in. Could you provide us any information on that and kind of when that application would happen and sort of what design, if they have any design ideas, whether they include access to 16th?
So there is a minor subdivision currently submitted for this property. It entails 3 houses, if I remember correctly. Access to 16 is not being proposed. There is no cross access as of right now being proposed to 16, from 16 to Kirkwood.
Okay, so Ms. Berman Holton could get a copy of that minor subdivision application, and that sounds like a good plan.
Yep. So Mr. Castillo will connect you to the minor subdivision. It sounds like it'll just be 3 units is what they're proposing. Great. Okay, any other comments or a motion?
Madam Chair, I move the city plan board recommend approval to the city commission of petition PB-22-23 LUC.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, carries unanimously. And do we have a motion on the zoning next?
Madam Chair, I move the city plan board recommend the city commission approval of petition PB-22-13 CON.
Second.
A second from Mr. Ackerman. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, carries unanimously. Mr. Castillo, can you read the next item into the record, please?
Item number 211143, amendment to the shops at Pinewood Plan Development Ordinance to allow for a mini warehouse / self-storage facility as a permitted use. The petition LD 22-000006, Holtzman Vogel, PLLC, agent for Warren Family Holdings Holdings One LLC, the applicant, request to amend the Shops at Pinewood Plan Development Zoning Ordinance to allow for mini warehouse / self-storage as a permitted use and increase the allowed building square footage, located on the southwest corner of US 441 and Northwest 23rd Terrace.
Okay.
I believe Mr. Simmons is here for that item.
Jason.
I think he's trying to share.
So I was on mute.
Oh.
Thank you.
We can hear you now, Jason, and we can see your presentation.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair, Plan Board members. This is Jason Simmons with the Department of Sustainable Development, the Planning Division. The petition before you right now is basically an attempt to add a use to an existing planned development, a use that's currently not allowed. This first slide, you see on the right some pictures. At the top, you see the Gainesville Carpets Plus Color Tile store. In the middle is the location of, the approximate location of one of the proposed retail stores. And then at the bottom is a view into the PD area from Northwest 23rd Terrace, looking at the proposed self-storage facility site. So this PD is located basically on the southwest corner of US 441 and Northwest 23rd Terrace. It's approximately the 6500 block of Northwest 13th Street. It's approximately 5.28 acres in size. The current land use is PUD, or Planned Use District, and the zoning is Planned Development, or PD. The request is to allow mini warehouse and self-storage facility as a permitted use within the PD, and also to allow a maximum building area square footage to increase from 46,000 square feet to 90,000 square feet in order to accommodate the self-storage facility. These are a couple of aerials showing the subject property and the approximate location within the city of Gainesville. You see the subject property highlighted in yellow. At the bottom, you see the Walmart Supercenter on 23rd Street. Across from there is the City of Gainesville Senior Center. You see 441 to the east of the subject property. And there's some new development going on just to the south here with the Dunkin' Donuts and the Family Dollar that's just been completed. So the request is to amend PD Ordinance 050487 in order to allow a mini warehouse self-storage facility as a permitted use, and also to increase the square footage from 46,000 square feet to 90,000 square feet. Now, this property has been a planned development since 1991, when the commission approved a land use and zoning to a PD for Zacks Level Builders. At that time, the intent was to have a development that was basically the equivalent to a neighborhood shopping center in terms of its intensity. The PD was never developed, however, and the PD ordinance expired after 5 years. In 2006, there was a revision to that previously approved PD, which was adopted under Ordinance 0-06-25. And from that PD, phase one has been completed, which includes the stormwater management facilities that are on the property, as well as the internal access drives. In addition, a commercial building was also constructed, and that's now the home of the Gainesville Carpet Plus store. So for For phase 2, the owner is proposing a self-storage facility to be developed on one of the existing building pad locations and a retail commercial use on the second vacant building pad location. Commercial business and retail development is currently allowed in the PD, generally consistent with the City of Gainesville's General Business District, General Business or BUS zoning district. The proposed amendment would add a mini warehouse self-storage facility as a use to supplement the current allowed uses in the PD. So the proposed amendments to ordinance 050487 would include, and I've got sort of the strike through and some underlined proposals here, where we would amend this current sentence about permitted uses as those uses permitted by right within the BUS General Business District, and also including mini warehouses, self-storage as a permitted use by right in the development. We need to add that because BUS does not allow mini warehouses as a use within that district. At the bottom here, just a strike through to clean up some language. The bus shelter has been completed and it's in place. There's some pictures later that show that. In the Shops at Pinewood Plan Development Report, there's some language where the proposed or the allowed uses in the BUS district are listed out. And within that paragraph, we propose adding the mini warehouse self-storage facility. And you see under the statistical information, a proposed change to change the 46,000 square feet to 90,000 and just clean up some of the language. Now these slides on the left, it shows the proposed location of the self-storage facility within the current development. And on the right, you see the proposed location of the retail building, which would front on 441. This is US 441. The carpet store is down here in the distance. This is a site plan showing the approximate locations of these two buildings. Out here is 441, and this is Northwest 23rd Terrace. The retail building would be located in this location. The Carpets Plus store is located here, shown as the existing building. And then you would have the mini warehouse, which would be proposed to be a 3-story climate-controlled facility located here. Now, these plans have not been finalized. They're currently under review on the second review cycle in project docs by the technical review committee members. Now, this is not in your staff report because this issue just came up recently concerning the parking standards for the plan development. You see in number 3, there was a requirement that the minimum number of parking spaces on site would be 1 space per 250 square feet of leasable floor area of building constructed. And the applicants indicated that if that was applied to the mini warehouse facility, that would be a lot more parking spaces than that would fit or that we would want at that location. So the underlined language here is referencing the parking standard for a mini warehouse self-storage use in the parking article of the Land Development Code, which is basically saying there shall be 5 spaces or 1 for the manager's area plus 1 per 200 bays, whichever is greater. I believe based on the proposal that the 5 spaces would be the greater. These are just some of the pictures in the area. You see the bus stop here looking east towards 441. This is looking south at the existing driveway into the site. This is the stormwater pond. It's currently on site. And then off site, this is looking north into the subject property from the shopping center, which lies to the south. And just a shot of the buildings in the shopping center. And here you see a shot looking northwest from the shopping center, looking at the stormwater pond for the shopping center, the multifamily area off to the left here, and the subject property off to the right. Now, reviewing PD amendments involves looking at the rezoning criteria. Details of this are in your backup in the staff report. But we believe that the proposal meets these criteria. And in addition, there's review criteria for plan development applications, consistency with the comprehensive plan, conformance to the PD purpose. Staff feels that the type of use will not increase the intensity of the plan development. Many warehouses and storage facilities generally do not generate the amount of automobile trips that a typical retail use would generate. So we feel it is still compatible with that sort of neighborhood shopping center feel or intent that was part of the original PD for this location. So with that, staff recommends approval of petition LD 22-6 with the provisions of the previously adopted ordinance still in effect, except where amended by this petition, and with the condition that the request for additional square footage allowed for building area be limited to the mini warehouse self-storage facility and not allowed for any of the other uses in the PD. In other words, if for whatever reason the proposal for the mini warehouse facility falls through, that additional square footage that is being requested for that use would not be applicable to any of the other uses allowed in the PD. So we're recommending approval of this petition and recommend to the City Commission adoption of the eventual ordinance to be created 21143. I thank you for your listening to the presentation. I'll be happy to answer or try to answer any questions that you have at this time. I believe the applicants were going to try to attend this meeting via Zoom since they are in Tallahassee. And that includes the applicant and the engineer in case you have questions about that.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. Are there any questions for staff on this petition?
I have some, but I'll hold until after that.
Okay. I think we'll hear if the applicant's here, do they have a presentation? Do we know?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Robert Volpe. I'm with Holtzman Vogel in Tallahassee on behalf of the applicant. We do not have a presentation. Staff did a wonderful job of presenting the application. This is an existing PD that has been amended in the past, and as Mr. Simmons presented, Phase 1 was developed, which included the parking access and stormwater management for the development, the PD, and also one building, which is now the carpet and tile building. This amendment is merely to allow that one additional use. There's currently a long list of retail and commercial uses, and we agree with staff's condition on the limiting the additional square footage to the mini storage, the mini warehouse self-storage use. That's a reasonable condition, and the intent really is for as Mr. Simmons mentioned, a 3-story enclosed, climate-controlled self-storage facility with an additional retail use on the pad closer to the 441. The pads are in existence. The pads have already been laid out. This is really just allowing that use on the existing pad. I'm happy to answer questions. We did have the discussion about parking because the way that was worded, it just didn't align with Gainesville's, the city's intent on parking for this type of use, and really didn't align with what's reasonable for this type of use. It would have resulted in 300 parking spots. So there's no need for that, and I think Jason has come up with a very reasonable solution to refer back to the city's existing parking requirements, which makes sense in that case. So if there are any other questions, I'd be glad to answer those. Also on the Zoom call is Mr. Tom Daniel. He's the project engineer. And finally, as Mr. Simmons mentioned, this is the PD zoning amendment. We do have a site plan in process, and that will be, we'll go through the applicable processes according to your code requirements and according to this PD. So certainly happy to answer questions. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Looks like Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to ask Mr. Volpe about the phase 2, the structure that's labeled phase 2 in the site plan. It looks like it's got circulation and parking on all 4 sides of the structure. Circulation or parking on all 4 sides of the structure, and the driveway aisle on the kind of southeastern side is a 12-foot aisle that abuts the building. I was wondering if it was a drive-through, or if you kind of had identified. You don't have to tell us your tenant or anything, but could you tell us more about the use that you're proposing there?
I don't know that end user has been identified at this point. It could possibly be a drive-through facility if that met the code requirements, but at this point I can't say. That user has not been identified. The pad would support about a 5,800 square foot retail building, give or take for the use. It would likely be a compatible retail with that area, possibly a drive-through, but I don't know that pad is large enough for a drive-through, but there are also some smaller drive-through facilities that might accommodate. At this point, the end user has not been identified, so I can't speculate on exactly what that would be.
Maybe from the questions from Mr. Simmons, I know the current PD conditions don't mention a drive-through, but the catch-all BUS, there's this incorporation by reference to the BUS district, and I didn't review the code before the meeting. I don't know if BUS was drive-throughs.
I think it does. I think
Yes, it does.
Thanks, Mr. Volpe.
Okay. Any other comments from the board before we open it to the public? Not seeing any. Do we have any public comment on this item? Feel free to step up to the microphone. Okay, not seeing any. I'll bring it back to the board for a motion or more discussion? Mr. Hawkins?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Simmons, could you show us the portion of the code that has the criteria for approving PD applications? Just so we could look at the code criteria? And specifically it's got a bunch of different subsections, but the one that lists the review criteria, it's either 317 or it's 317.
One thing I would note, if the drive-through is where you're headed, is that there is another drive-through, like right around the corner. The Dunkin' Donuts has a drive-through in the same area.
I
don't know if that's your significant
That's not what I was
concern.
going to bring up.
Okay, I didn't know if that's the path you were headed, but there's one right there, so compatibility and it might be a tough sell on that, but.
Okay,
If you have
Okay,
new
in your
code
back-
or however you have the code provisions accessible.
well, they're listed in your staff report, starting on page 11. These are the headings for each of the criteria.
Well, I know that we don't have copies of the code. I mean, I have a copy of the code because I bring one, but I don't know if other folks do. Is it possible for us to look at the code provision together?
Just a second.
No.
PD approval.
I'd like for us
the
to
conditions for PD approval.
look at the conditions for PD approval.
Okay, I'm gonna have to, let's see. I'm gonna have to stop sharing for a second so I can find it.
I have those available if you like.
Okay, I think Mr. Castillo has it and can share from his screen, perhaps. Teamwork, planning teamwork.
Awesome. The one that I wanted to point out is B, which is, it says conformance to PD purpose. A PD application may only be approved if it's in conformance with the purpose of PDs as articulated in, and then it's this section that's 2 up if you click the link, Mr. Castillo. So this is the PD purpose. So the commission says, when we're going to consider a PD, we've got to consider conformance with this purpose. And there's a bunch of stuff in here, but the one that I think has the most kind of descriptive information about what PDs are supposed to meet is in paragraph 3. Could you read us paragraph 3, either Mr. Simmons or Mr. Castillo?
Permit outstanding and innovative residential and non-residential developments with quality of life design features such as integration of housing types and accommodation of changing lifestyles within neighborhoods, design that encourages internal and external convenient and comfortable travel by foot, bicycle, and transit through such strategies as pedestrian scale, a building orientation generally towards streets and sidewalks, parking located to the side or rear of buildings, narrow streets, modest setbacks, front porches, connected streets, multiple connections to nearby land uses, terminated vistas, recessed garages, alleys, enhanced landscaping, and mixed uses.
And can you kind of give us your sense of whether the mini warehouse and possible drive-through meet that standard?
Well, we're not making any change concerning the retail use, the drive-through. It's an allowed.
That's not my question.
But it's
does what's in the PD ordinance meet this standard? And just sort of talk us through it, whether it does or doesn't, just kind of give us your sense.
My sense was that this mini warehouse facility would be placed within an existing design for the PD because of the proximity to multifamily to the west. If there would be convenient access for that, there's multifamily and single family nearby. There's transit and there's sidewalks in the PD land area development itself that have already been completed. The car trips would be minimized, not needing to access 441. As far as the retail use, again, was an allowed use or is an allowed use within the BUS district currently. There are plenty of comments from staff under the current review concerning whether this is a drive-through, what the layout of the drive-through would be. So that's not a done deal by any stretch of the imagination. I think this, and with the placement of the building within sort of the middle of this PD development, it's adequately screened from the multifamily by the existing stormwater facilities. Again, because of the trip generation for mini warehouses, self-storage facilities, it's not generating based on typical trip generation typical trip generation.
Excuse me,
Yeah, Mr.
Mr.
Ackerman.
Simmons, it's clear that you have an argument to make, and it would be better if you did it than do this Socratic interrogation.
Yeah, well, I don't mean for it to feel like an interrogation. I just write outstanding and innovative. It's not outstanding and innovative. It's a 3-story mini warehouse. Quality of life design features. They're not proposing any quality of life design features. Changing lifestyles within neighborhoods. I mean, we generally associate that when we have a development that has small scale multifamily with single family houses with, a variety of housing types. Convenient and comfortable travel by foot, bicycle, and transit. I mean, I appreciate that there's a transit line on 441, but I don't know how this is going to support folks accessing it. Parking located to the side or rear of buildings. I mean, the site plan clearly shows that's not the case. The parking's all right up front. That's the dominant feature. Front porches, connected streets, multiple connections to nearby land uses. They're describing traditional neighborhood development. This is a required standard. So I don't think there's any question this doesn't meet those standards.
Madam Chair.
Although I appreciate your response, Mr. Simmons.
Mr. Simmons?
Madam Chair, please note that this is an fairly old PD, and that it was revised starting in 2005 and passed in 2006. Basically, what's being proposed is a text change to add a permitted use.
Yes, I appreciate that, Mr. Simmons.
Mr. Castillo, could you show us section 30-321? Uh, 21, I'm sorry. Or is it 31? 21. So these are the explicit directions for when we're doing exactly what Mr. Simmons described as doing, which is looking at an amendment to an existing PD. And in paragraph A, it says, except as otherwise provided in the section, and I don't know of any exceptions that would apply, amendments to an approved PD, unless you're extending the time, which we're not talking about doing here, are required by a new PD rezoning application. So we're starting at the beginning, we're comparing the proposed change in zoning to the standards in law, and the standards are super clear. You shall meet this standard, and I mean, it's, maybe y'all think when you look at the site plan, you're seeing the front porches and a nice place to walk, but I don't see that. That's the only point that I want to make is I don't think there's any question as to whether this meets the standard. It's so crystal clear that it's not what the code says we're allowed to approve. It says that's exactly what we're not supposed to do. Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Mr. Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. I would just ask staff, and I don't know who happened to be probably on this first step meeting. I'm looking at Mr. Edelton. You may not have been back at the city yet. Was there any conversation about going to a straight zoning category here rather than amending the PD when this proposed development came? I don't know if Mr. Simmons is going to have that background or not. Or if, I mean, he probably got to sign the application when it came in. Does anyone else? I know Andrew stepped out. Mr. Edelton, sorry to put you on the spot, but do you have any history of the initial conversation about sort of how to handle this issue when they came to planning?
Madam Chair, I don't have that information in front of me right now. Yes, it's the two of our planners that have done the first steps, and I believe that was our other planner, and
Okay.
they are not here.
Okay.
But we can look up that first step information. I'll see if I can pull it up quickly.
It might. I guess I'm interested perhaps in what zoning categories, I don't know off the top of my head, do allow the self-storage use. If I'm not opposed to approving this. I think it was, developed under previous PD standards. It's, basically, remarkably similar to what was approved previously. It's just adding a use. I'm not opposed to that, but I think, might just be worthwhile looking at what other categories do allow this, if the BUS category doesn't.
Madam Chair, in that same grouping of mixed use and non-residential zoning districts that includes the mixed use districts, OF, BUS, et cetera, for many warehouses, they're permitted uses in the BI, the business industrial, warehouse, I-1 and I-2.
Okay.
Now, they're also permitted in a couple of the transect zones, namely the urban 8 and the urban 9.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Persons, I know you stepped away for a minute. I don't know if you heard my question about if there was any conversation with this applicant about going to a straight zoning category rather than amending the PD at any point.
I know, Madam Chair, I don't know. I don't think I talked to this this applicant. It may have been Ms. McMullen who spoke with them.
Okay.
I will say, I guess, historically it's been, we have a lot of, I think over probably 150 PD zone properties in the city, some of which go back, before I was born. And so we do occasionally from time to time get folks coming in and asking for amendments. Generally, we try to, as staff, encourage rezoning out of old PDs when there's like any amount of complexity to it. In some cases, historically, if it's just adding a use to an existing PD, that's been past practice. But anyway, but this one, I'm unfortunately I don't have any other additional grand insight on.
Great, thank you. I would just say, just the location of this property and the fact that it's currently zone PD, I understand Mr. Hawkins' point, but I don't think that, a neighborhood of, cottages with front porches really is suitable here. I think that doesn't meet the compatibility standards. I think that a lot of what's in that section, this is sort of a commercial area. It's along a major corridor. I don't have a problem adding this use to the PD and moving on. I understand that if this was coming to us as a new PD, I don't know that we would approve it. I see your point there, but I think that it's consistent with the character of the area. I think that I don't have opposition to the way that they're trying to implement this use. Mr. Hawkins.
I agree with everything you said. I think the point, though, that I'd make is that it's not about whether we think a mini warehouse is fine. The city commission has said what it's going to do, and it's the city staff's job, it's our job to do those things. And certainly there are times when we might they might not have thought of something ahead of time. Right? Like, they didn't think about this, and so we've got to think on our feet and come up with the best solution given the circumstances. When we read the code, it's crystal clear they knew what they were asking for. And they specifically addressed this thing, hey, if you've got an existing PD, we want you to analyze the criteria. I mean, they went out of their way to say that. When you're looking at an existing PD and you're amending it, you start from scratch and you look at these criteria. And so I don't disagree with you, but it's important for the city to do what it says it's going to do. And I don't know if anybody else agrees with me, but I'm going to shoot for it. I move that the city commission recommend that the city commission, the plan board. I recommend that the city plan board recommend to the city commission denial of petition LD 22-6, and I would add that we explicitly make the finding the reason for denial is because the proposal does not meet the PD purposes.
Okay, do we have a second on that motion? Okay, a second. All of those in favor of the motion, which is to deny this petition, please say or recommend.
Madam
denial.
Chair,
Yes.
as this is a quasi-judicial, do I have an opportunity to respond to those questions that were raised?
Yes, that's fine.
First, the question about whether or not this was raised at the first step.
Mm-hmm.
The question that was brought up at the first step was about a mini warehouse use, and the recommendation from staff was to amend the PD and to add this use. As to the conditions for a PD, I completely understand the list of conditions. Those are recommendations, recommended conditions. It says such as. This is an existing plan development that the phase one has incorporated things such as the original developer built a bus shelter to encourage multimodal transit. The pedestrian pathways have been built. The stormwater and buffering has been constructed. The currently retail buildings could be built on those pads right now, but they have not been because this was a PD that was amended multiple years ago. This change is to try to make this use successful, and it was the recommendation of the staff that we amend this PD. Changing to an existing zoning category would be problematic because the PD has already been built out in phase one. So there would have been, it would be like changing the underlying zoning of a halfway constructed subdivision. So I understand the concern. I would point back to those conditions that are in the previous section that was referenced, section 317, that those are a recommended list. I mean, certainly on a 5-acre commercial piece of property, front porches and things of that nature are not the goal of the city. Is not to have all of those things in every PD. That's a list of concerns that would create that kind of development. If this was a typical zoning district, there would not be a requirement for a bus station. There would not be requirement for internal sidewalks in the development. So those are the kinds of things that a PD allows the staff to come up with innovative ideas, and hopefully this proposed use allows this existing PD to be successful. I will also point out in the neighborhood meeting that we had two people show up. One was from the multifamily property to the north, and they were excited about the opportunity of having this project completed. And the other was the existing retail tenant, the carpet store, who was also excited about having this property completed. So respectfully, I would ask that you move forward with an approval of this minor amendment to this existing PD so that it can be completed as a successful development that does incorporate some of those suggested improvements to a specific plan development. And thank you for letting me respond.
Yes, thank you. Bringing it back to a vote, I'm going to ask Mr. Castillo if you can do a roll call vote, because I think it's going to be split and we have Sophia on Zoom.
Stephanie Sutton?
No.
Bob Ackerman?
No.
Thomas Hawkins?
Yes.
James Blythe?
No.
Sophia Corrugato? Ms. Sophia, you are muted. We can't hear you.
Come in, Sophia.
Sophia, can you hear us?
We'll see if she by
Okay.
chance has maybe send a message.
Yeah, maybe send a message and.
Hope not from John.
Numbers in the effort.
Controls. Where's the chat? Let's see.
You can
Bless
do
you.
the other two and come back to her.
Yeah. Jason Hurst?
No.
Josh Renee?
Yes.
Okay, so Sophia, are you there? Can you hear us? She may have stepped away. I mean,
It
I
fails
think we should
regardless.
just assume, yeah, that fails.
It'd be 4-3.
So do we have another motion for this item? Looking at the three others that voted no. For somebody to make an alternative motion.
So, just more of a question. I agree with the kind of such as language, the recommendations not being binding. I am interested though in the idea of if it does say that there is, you can't do this minor change as part of a PD, even if it is probably a relevant and good place for this, instead of looking at some greenfield site for storage. Is there some way to kind of do this correctly? Because I don't think it's going to end up to be kind of a TND sort of development, you know. But I do agree with the fact that if it says you need to apply with all the new kind of criteria, does it meet the new criteria with the understanding that those definitions are recommendations? Is there another kind of overlay that we're missing? It's just more of a question.
So, Mr. Simmons, I don't know if you want to take a stab at that based on the criteria for the PD and how you found it to meet that criteria? Do you sort of understand where Mr. Blythe is going? Or Mr. Person? Somebody want to take a stab at that one?
Well, Madam Chair, while they're trying to take a stab at this,
Yes, Mr. Ackerman.
let me just propose an alternative mission for the plan board, which is obviously we have an extensive body in our land use code, in our LDRs, and frequently they, for a whole range of reasons, don't fit exactly right the way they're supposed to. And it's my position that in occasions where we're going to do something that appears to be ridiculous, that we should not do that. And as Mr. Hawkins, who's disappeared, routinely tells us, the city commission will decide whether they want to do this or not. But I think we should come down on the side of common sense and doing the thing that appears to be right. And in this case, this is, you know, at the edge of the city. There's probably no better place to put some storage. It's on a major state highway, or federal highway, 441. It's at the edge of town. This is a PD that's basically failed. It has one building in it right this minute since 1991. It just seems common sense is that we just send this on and say we think this is the right thing to do, whether it meets, and I don't agree that it doesn't meet the letter of the ordinance, but I just think we ought to do that. Sorry you were gone.
I got the gist.
All right.
I got the gist.
Madam
Mr. Simmons, do you have some thoughts on Mr. Blythe's comment, question, commentary?
Concerning evaluate.
Meeting the PD criteria, I think, how you came to the conclusion in your staff report that this meets the PD criteria, but also overcoming like Mr. Hawkins' concerns. Does that summarize
Well,
a little bit?
we have to look at consistency with the comprehensive plan. So as outlined in paragraph H in the staff report concerning the goals, objectives, and policies of the comp plan, there's talk about quality of life. There's talk about adopting land development regulations that guide the transformation of conventional shopping centers into walkable mixed-use neighborhood activity centers. And then there's policy 1.3.2 and 1.3.3. The finding was the requested PD amendment will be compatible with the character of the development as a walkable neighborhood scaled center with a mix of uses that serve the nearby residential areas and the community at large. There's the PUD, which is in the land use element, the future land use element, the provisions of the planned use district land use category. The requested PD amendment is adding a use that's compatible with the character of the development as a walkable neighborhood scaled center. It's the same thing. Transportation, we noted that this is now in the transportation mobility program area, and it will be subject to any TMPA fees that might be applicable now. The area was not within the TMPA or the previous transportation concurrency exception area during the review of the revised PD ordinance. Then there's the things about the other things about the PD, conformance to PD purposes, which we've already talked about. Internal compatibility. The property has adequate pedestrian ways and circulation, which were developed during phase one. The PD report indicates that the architectural theme of individual buildings shall attempt to provide consistency to other buildings on the site, but there's no central architectural theme. The guidelines are intended to reduce massing and establish a pedestrian scaled experience. We'll be reviewing the new buildings that are proposed to make sure they're compatible with the scale of the development and will be accessible via an existing driveway and the internal sidewalk system. As far as external compatibility, the property is adjacent to a shopping center, a large stormwater facility to the south. There's a vacant parcel of land with PD zoning to the north, and there's the multifamily residential to the west. The stormwater facility on the subject property, the existing one built during phase one, acts as a buffer between the property and the adjacent multifamily. The property fronts US 441, which is a major thoroughfare and is suitable for the location of the proposed uses, particularly the retail use, which would be fronting on 441. Access to the site is limited to 23rd Terrace, and there are no existing or proposed access points that connect to neighboring residential neighborhoods. As far as intensity of development, this would allow a use that's not currently allowed, obviously. The existing PD allows for 46,000 square feet of building area. The amendment would add and allow up to 90,000. But the number of automobile trips generated by a self-storage facility is generally less than the trips generated by comparably sized retail uses. The PD allows retail use, and the proposed retail building will be adjacent to US 441 on the other side of the PD area from the multifamily residential on the west. The intensity of development will be further limited by adding a condition to the PD limiting the requested additional square footage to the mini warehouse storage facility and not allowing additional square footage for any of the other uses in the PD. So we're not allowing an increase of square footage of any of the already allowed retail, commercial, and office type uses. It's usable open spaces, plazas, and recreation areas. There's not really any plazas or open spaces or recreation areas on the site. There's no particular environmental constraints or environmental features on the site. For any new development, landscaping will be provided to meet the provisions of the Land Development Code. External transportation access, development at the property is accessed by Northwest 23rd Terrace, which in turn provides access to US 441. But there won't be any access off of 441 into the site. Internal transportation access, the internal driveways and surface parking, they'll probably have to be paved at some point for any new development that comes in there, but the general layout is existing to support the parking and maneuvering at the property. As far as the provision for the range of transportation choices, sufficient off-street parking is currently provided for the carpet store. We've talked about the parking, and that the PD report indicates the minimum number shall be 1 space per 250 square feet of leasable floor area. But we note that future parking areas for the proposed new buildings are required to be built in accordance with the Land Development Code. Sidewalk connections will be required from the street to the proposed new buildings. The site is located on RTS bus route number 8, and the bus shelter was built for bus patrons back in the phase 1 section for this development. I mean, that's from the staff report. I don't think we felt that there was going to be a large negative impact of this use within that PD, that it might trigger, further, development of that PD, and that the multifamily developments to the west would be adequately buffered because of the lack of generation from a warehouse, and the fact that the retail building, again, which is already allowed in the existing PD, is basically on the corner of 441 and 23rd Terrace. I don't know if that answers the question, but staff finds the proposal reasonable and recommends approval as an added use to the PD ordinance.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Simmons. Bringing it back to the board, if anyone would like to make a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Ackerman.
I move that we approve petition LD 22-000006 based on the testimony you've heard here today.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
You said oppose or approve?
Approve,
Oh, yeah,
or
second.
recommend approval to the commission. Second from Mr. Hurst. Okay, can we do a roll call vote again, Mr. Castillo? And Sophia, if you can hear us, you're gonna have to vote in a second.
I see her name now.
Yeah, she's just on mute.
Stephanie Sutton,
Yes.
Bob Ackerman,
Yes.
Thomas Hawkins, James Blythe,
Yes.
Sophia Corrugetto,
Yes.
Jason Hurst,
Yes.
Joshua Nay. Yes.
Okay, thanks. See what the city commission does. Mr. Castillo, can you read the next item into the record, please?
Good night, Mr. Volpe. Hope you can sleep.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Yes, thank you.
Next item, 211146, Patel annexation, small scale land use change. Petition LD 22-000017, LUC, City of Gainesville, applicant. Request to amend the City of Gainesville future land use map for recently annexed property from Alachua County Commercial to City of Gainesville Urban Mixed Use, UMU, with up to 60 units per acre density. Located at 3700, 3780, and 3820 Southwest 13th Street, related to petition LD 22-000018.
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members. I'm about to share my screen.
Okay, we can see your PowerPoint, Jason.
Thank you. So this is the Patel annexation land use change. It involves the properties you see sort of a brief picture of on the right-hand side. There are 3 parcels in total that were annexed into the city back in February of this year. The southernmost parcel has the Gatortown Inn, which is a hotel that you see in the top slide here. And then the 2 parcels to the north of it are both vacant. That you see here and here, that little structure is part of the L-shaped hotel property. Oops. So this is a small-scale land use change. The 3 parcels total just under 4 acres in size. It's on the west side of Southwest 13th Street, south of Southwest 36th Place, east of Southwest 15th Street, and it's north of Southwest Williston Road. The current land use is Alachua County Commercial, and the current zoning is Alachua County BR, which is Business, Retail, Sales, and Service. The request is to amend the future land use map from Alachua County Commercial to City of Gainesville Urban Mixed Use. And this is the proposed land use map showing the proposed UMU land use in this location. So this is an aerial showing you the subject properties as well as what's around it. It's on Southwest 13th Street to the north of Southwest Williston Road. You see over here to the west is largely single-family residential areas. The properties to the north and to the south of the subject properties are both restaurants. We've also got a restaurant on the east side of Southwest 13th Street located up here. You got office use. You have a multifamily development, which is in the city limits or has been in the city limits for some time. That's the Landings at Bivens Arm apartment development. And you've got offices down here. You got a vacant property here, and then you've got some Shands owned property to the south on the east side of Southwest 13th Street. Now the UMU land use category is, let me go back, is compatible with surrounding land use categories, including the Alachua County Commercial on the north, south, and east side of the properties. It's compatible with the Alachua County Residential on the west, and the Alachua County Commercial and the City of Gainesville Residential Low Density on the eastern side of Southwest 13th Street. Abutting development is largely single-family residential, and the existing hotel use at the site is considered to be compatible. Restaurant uses lie to the north and south of the annexed property, and you have multifamily development, offices, and vacant commercial land on the east side of 13th Street across from the subject property. So the land use amendments are reviewed in your staff report. You see generally we use the 11 criteria. We also have these criteria here focused on the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan, the need for additional land in the proposed land use category based on the projected population of the city, proposed land use category of the property in relation to surrounding properties and other similar properties, and the potential impact of the land use change on adopted level of service standards. So the proposed land use categories, the urban mixed use, up to 60 units per acre and up to 20 additional units per acre by special use permit. So that's the provisions of the urban mixed use. As far as goals, objectives, and policies, newly annexed lands shall retain land uses designated by the county until the future land use element of the plan is amended. The land use amendments have to be prepared within 1 year of annexation. And Alachua County level of service standards apply until the newly annexed lands are given land use designations in this plan. The subject property was annexed in February. It retains its commercial land use designation from Alachua County. That request to designate the property with the appropriate City of Gainesville future land use category and the related rezoning petition, which comes after this, will designate the property with a City of Gainesville zoning category. Such designations will allow for the city to apply level of service standards based on City of Gainesville requirements. So the subject property has access to public facilities and services that include utilities, schools, parks, etc. GRU services are available to the property, including potable water, sewer, electric, and gas. Any future development on the property will require water and wastewater capacity evaluations that will determine if off-site upgrades will be required. Stormwater and transportation facility level of service standards are assessed during the development review process if any development is proposed in the future, and no final development order is issued until it is determined that adequate facilities and services will be in place at the time the impact of the development occurs. This is the impact on adopted level of service standards. As far as the urban mixed use acreage, in 2022, the total amount of UMU acreage was 1,370 acres. 75.7% of that was occupied, leaving the 332.91 vacant acres. This proposal is adding just under 4 acres of land to that urban mixed use category. So again, staff recommends approval of petition LD 22-000017 because it meets the review requirements in that it's consistent with the comprehensive plan, compatible with surrounding land uses, and the impacts on adopted levels of service for stormwater and transportation are assessed during the development review process if development is proposed in the future. In the zoning application, I get into a little more detail of what's further north on the corridor. You see the subject property here, then you've got county land that's still in Alachua County with its commercial land use. Then you see the UMU starting up again, or, once we get back into city limits. So we feel this will be compatible with the general trend of the land use and zoning on this corridor from city limits down to Southwest Williston Road. I'll be happy to answer any questions, or if you want to proceed to the zoning petition.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. Let's see if there's any questions for staff. Not seeing any. How do you all feel about proceeding with the zoning presentation and then voting on them together? Okay. Mr. Simmons, if you'd like to go ahead with the zoning presentation, and then we can do both votes together, similar to how we did the other item.
Okay, so can you see that?
Yes. Yep, you're good to go.
So, well, I think Mr. Castillo has to read it into the record.
Oh, sorry. Mr. Castillo, can you read this into the record?
Sure.
We're all sorts of just all over today.
It's Thursday. 211147, Patel Annexation Rezoning. Petition LD 22-000018ZON, City of Gainesville applicant. Request to rezone recently annexed property from Alachua County Business, Retail Sales, and Services to City of Gainesville Urban 7, located at 3700, 3780, and 3820 Southwest 13th Street, related to petition LD 22-000017.
Thank you. Mr. Simmons?
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. In the same properties, 4 acres, the current land use is the Alachua County BR, Business, Retail, Sales, and Service. And the proposal would change that to the City of Gainesville's Urban 7, one of our transect zones. You see the existing land use categories in that area right now with the existing zoning map. The proposed zoning, we would rezone this to U7. Again, this is the aerial showing what's in and around the subject properties. Now, the Urban 7 zone allows for the full range of residential uses, including single-family dwellings and multifamily dwellings with 50 units per acre by right and up to 60 units per acre with meeting the bonus system requirements. The zone also allows a wide range of non-residential uses, including retail, office, medical offices, business and personal services. The proposed U7 zoning will allow for the continuation of the existing hotel use at the property as a conforming use, as well as provide an opportunity for future mixed-use development, which can be compatible with adjacent residential development through compliance with the design requirements or with the design criteria that's present for the transect zones. So for rezoning, we go through the list of the rezoning criteria to meet, looking at the compatibility of permitted uses and the intensity, the character of the district and its suitability for particular uses, and so on and so forth, which are spelled out in the staff report for this petition. In addition, because we're proposing a zoning change to a transect zone, there's additional criteria to look at specific to the transect zones, indicating that 1, the proposed transect zone shall provide a logical extension of an existing zone or an adequate transition between zones. The area shall have had a change in growth and development pattern to warrant the rezoning to a more or less urban T-zone. The request shall be consistent with the overall City of Gainesville vision for growth and development as expressed in the comprehensive plan. And if not adjacent to an existing T-zone, the rezoning site shall comprise a minimum of 10 acres. Well, as indicated before, the subject property is just under 4 acres, and it's not directly adjacent to an existing transect zone. However, the way, and let me get to, well, if you look across the street, you have a property located here, And then south of that, you see the office and then some other development which extends generally down to Southwest Williston Road. That's property that's currently owned by Shands. Those properties across the street are at some point scheduled to be going through the annexation process. The applications are in. I think we're waiting on the completion of the ordinance from the legal department before taking it to the city commission. I believe the proposed land use and zoning for those have already been heard by this body, but the recommendations for the land use and zoning for these properties across the street are also UMU, or the urban mixed use land use, in the urban 7 zoning. So I think the idea is to get the land use and zoning reviewed and approved by the plan board, and then combine these 3 separate annexation area petitions and make them into one ordinance and one petition for the rezoning, because combined those properties are over the 10 acres in size. And we're recommending the urban 7 for all 3 of these properties. If you look on this map, north is to the right. You see Southwest 13th Street as it goes and intersects with Williston Road over here to the left. The subject property tonight is located here. You see basically you have the U7 transect zone already in place along Southwest 13th Street as it extends south. The nearest city-owned, the nearest city property on the west side of 13th Street is urban 7. So between this and the properties to the west, you would basically have that transect zone extending down to Southwest Williston Road. So we think what we're proposing here is consistent with the direction of this corridor and is compatible with the uses on 13th Street and compatible with the surrounding properties in that area.
Mr. Simmons, can I ask another question related to that? I was fairly certain, and maybe it's just stalled out, or maybe it wasn't approved, but we had suggested and moved a text change through that would eliminate that 10-acre requirement. Does anyone know, did that just kind of die with the other Depot Park thing? They just didn't vote on it or said no, or?
I think if I recall, and staff may be able to remind me, I think they actually ended up referred it back to you all. The 10
Yeah,
acre.
we voted yes. And
Like
I mean, if we want transects everywhere, which they do, I mean, they're changing recommendations that have been through consultants and staff and the plan board even to go back to transects. I don't know why they would want to make it more difficult to do that, but when do you think we'll get that back? If it is referred back to us for something that we already approved?
I think I guess we'll just probably put it back on your agenda. I mean, it's the same petition. I'm not sure what.
What is that supposed? I don't understand what that's supposed to accomplish. I guess there's a new member of the board that, you know, but okay. I was just surprised to see that as an issue here because I thought that issue was resolved and gone away, and I'm a little disappointed that they can't make a decision on that. I have other thoughts, but I'm not going to go there. But okay, so it sounds like then staff sort of has a solution for how to get around that, which seems crazy that you need to do that, but you know.
And if I may just add a little bit more context, I think Mr. Simmons has alluded to this, but we've connected with legal, and we have talked about how the language talks about adjacent being similar minimum separation, and in this case being that the existing U7 is within that city limit, and the next city limit over is being proposed to be U7. Those two city limits would be supported. Legal would be able to support that those will constitute a similar enough.
Yeah. Mr. Hawkins?
Legal says that the subject property is adjacent to the property that's got 3 parcels in between it to the next one.
It's similar enough that we
Because it's the next
It's
city
adjacent
limit
enough.
over.
But I don't have any opposition to the
Well,
change
we
in
can-
the comp plan, but we got to use words that their normal English language mean.
The only reason we can annex it is because it's adjacent to the stuff across the road.
Yeah, but there's explicit standards in the annexation statute that define
Adjacency.
of annexation to bypass rights of ways and bodies of water.
It does.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're good.
That doesn't mean it's adjacent to the U-set.
Of course.
Yeah, no, I hear you, Mr. Hawkins, I hear you.
You know.
But the across the street thing, I don't know why we can't, I don't know, I didn't watch the meeting, I don't know why the 10-acre thing didn't get approved. I would like to see that come back to us soon. I think it's a logical thing. We supported it the first time. I'd like to see it move forward and get approved by the city commission. That's all I have to say on that, so that we can do things like this.
Let me ask you
It
this.
seems schemy to combine like different property owners and different things going through on different time scales into one ordinance. It just seems schemy, and we're trying to, I don't like it. I don't like it. I support this, and if that's the way staff can get it done, that's fine. We need to get the 10-acre thing resolved.
Let me ask you this. This was annexed in February, so that's only a couple of months ago. We got a year to do this, right? Is there some urgency that needs this zoning applied today?
Well,
The one across the street might need this.
Right.
Do they have 10 acres without this?
right, well, originally we were.
That's why.
We were under the impression that the 10 acres was gonna go away, and then it didn't, and so now
Oh, okay, so we gotta do it with this whole group, or we're.
We gotta tie it into the other group that's now, falling behind.
Everybody do
Because of the
backflips.
10-acre thing. It seems absurd. We need to get the 10-acre thing back as soon as possible and refer it back to them, like, as soon as possible.
We can put it on.
They want to set our agendas ahead of the schedule that we did. I want to send this back to them as soon as possible.
We can put it on your May agenda.
If the city commission has explicitly considered whether to get rid of the 10-acre threshold, and they said that they don't want to get rid of it, they had a vote, and the majority of the commission said, we're going to keep the 10-acre threshold.
I don't know
Shouldn't
if
we
that's
have
what
fidelity to
happened.
that? I mean, my understanding is they had a petition to consider it, and they rejected the petition.
well,
But
they
you're saying they
approved the-
referred it to us. They didn't say no. They said send it back to the plan.
They
board.
didn't vote on the underlying petition, they just referred it back.
They just referred it back to the plan board for.
And we had
addition.
already referred
For
it to
further
them.
consideration,
So
alright.
I'm not changing my mind on that issue for reasons like this.
But I voted.
I'll take that back, and I'd like to take it back before some of the other things they want us to hear, but that's fine. That's crazy to me. So sorry to divert this entirely, Mr. Simmons, but this seems schemy. I don't like combining these different things. It's unnecessary in my mind. We can't fix the 10-acre thing, so we need to do it. I support this change, but It is what it is.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Well, staff recommends approval of petition LD 22
Thanks, Jason.
dash
Sorry to
0018.
sorry to go on a sidetrack there. Any other comments on this from the board?
No.
Okay, anyone from the public that would like to speak to this petition, come up and state your name for the record, please.
Hi, excuse me, I'm a little gippy for my age, but that's comes with the territory. My name's Otho Peterman. I've had the privilege of living back in Bivens Arms South for 30 years now. I was married into a household where I'm not leaving. And Bivens Arm, if you've never been into that area, is a quiet, one way in, one way out neighborhood where you can walk on the streets with no traffic. It's quiet, peaceful, and very pleasant to be out of the hubbub of the activity that represents outside of the neighborhood. I was very surprised to see suddenly a sign on our entranceway that said that we were rezoned and that we were now annexed into the city. I didn't see that coming. I had no idea that we were going to be part of Gainesville. I kind of like being county because that was kind of a flavor that I enjoyed. But it is what it is, and here we are. So I will be friendly because I'm part of your team too now. But
So this just applies to the parcels right along 441. It doesn't apply, I don't think, to the residential street behind.
I'm sorry, pardon me?
So this petition does not, it only applies to the 3 parcels out on 441 that are directly on 441. It doesn't apply to the residential street that I believe you.
I see.
So you're
So
still
you
in the
saw the
county.
sign because we put signs up to let
Yeah,
neighbors
well, the
know
sign
about
was
what's happening.
put there so that we who live there would be notified of the change that was coming. And so as a community, we all pay attention and we're concerned. The idea of a large increase in density right there on that corridor doesn't make me happy. The idea of going to high density right there on the road doesn't make me happy either. And so I don't think that adds anything to what we appreciate as a part of where we live. So I just needed to make point of being heard because we love living where we are, and it's precious to us to be where we are. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. So when parcels get annexed, I just want to explain what happens. And they can't annex, well, there may be a way to annex your property without your permission. But this property owner is asking to come into the city. It's a voluntary annexation is my understanding. They try to come up with a land use and zoning that's comparable to what's existing. So although you are on a single family quiet street, the zoning that is existing along 441 is more commercial and mixed use. I don't know that the current county zoning allows the residential density that this would, but it does allow a number of the commercial uses that this comparable city zoning would.
Yeah. Madam Chair, yeah, the biggest differences between the county zoning and what we're proposing is the Urban 7 actually allows for residential use and the county BR zoning does not.
Yeah. So that's, most of the commercial uses are going to be the same. It just allows the additional residential density because it's more of a mixed use category. Sir, did you want to come forward? If you can come up to the microphone and just state your name.
Hey, I'm Michael Eric.
Okay.
I live in that neighborhood too.
Okay, great.
Could we go back to where you could see the neighborhood there?
Sure. Mr. Simmons, can you go back in your PowerPoint?
Yeah, right there. Well,
Okay, right here is good?
No,
The
there was
aerial,
another one
or
that
did you want
showed-
something else?
Well, yeah, you can stay here. Okay. So my concern is traffic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anybody travels south of 441, but when I left today at 6 o'clock, the traffic from Williston Road going north was all the way to the hotel. And that's every day from 4 to 6:30 about. You cannot, so we have to come out that one little road at the top, it's called 36th Place. Can't get out. You can't go right because traffic. If you go left, you just gotta hope that two people let you in, with the second one not speeding by. So putting 250 new people in that area kind of worries me a little bit about that. What really worries me is that, as you see, it's not continuous to anything else on that side. So everything on that side is in the county except for that one little zone is in the city. So 36th Place is not wide enough for a garbage truck and a regular car to go by. So my worry is, you know, if you go look down, I mean, here's what we're talking about. We're talking about 250 new people there. If you go down to 13th, every one of those new condos or apartment complexes has a side road. And that road's pretty good size. Ours is literally less than 2 car widths. So I don't know how all these people are going to get out onto 41 at traffic time because there's no side road. And if there is a side road, nobody realizes one way in, one way out. If we ever had an emergency, we're going to be slammed in that area. The only other thing is that back line across the back, that butts up to people's back doors. And those lots are really small, and it's going to be from that edge of that property to his house is not this far. There's no backyard up there. So I'm just wondering how, that property's not that big to put that many people, unless you put a parking garage in anyways, and who knows what they're going to do. But I'm just concerned that traffic is, until somebody figures out how to solve 4 o'clock to 6:30 traffic, it's terrible right now. It may be putting a stoplight up, I don't know. But I don't know who's in charge of that, because it's, again, I got a city area next to a county road.
And a state road.
Well, it's no, 41,
441.
36th Place is county, right? Right across from that restaurant right there, so you've got, and I don't know how that's gonna figure into all this, because it's 2 different jurisdictions. But
I understand your concerns. I mean, the traffic is one thing, you know, that we should think about with the rezoning, but the allowable uses and intensities are actually pretty comparable trip-wise to what's allowed there now. So you can see there's a number of restaurants and
So
the
because
hotel
they're
and things
allowed-
that have a high trip generation already. Any development on this site will happen through a separate review process. The city's actually in the midst of changing the requirements, unless, who knows? I mean, it's not done till it's done, apparently. That any development over 50 units would have to go to a public hearing. Regardless of whether it has to go to a public hearing or not, a development on this site of any scale is going to have a traffic study. And they're going to have to work with DOT for how they're connecting to 441. They're going to have to work with the county if they're connecting to a county road. And a traffic study is going to have to dictate all of that. I would imagine, based on my experience on this corridor, there's going to be changes to median openings, right turn lanes. DOT is going to require a lot of work to accommodate any significant number of trips. But all of that will be done at site plan based on what the proposed development is. If anything's even changing, it sounds like, and I don't know, staff can correct me, it sounds like if the people across the street might have needed the area just to move their process forward and just approach, people to come in. I don't know if there's a proposed development on this site or if staff can share what it might be. It sounds like maybe this is a scheme to get around the 10-acre plan.
And ultimately,
But-
there is no development plan at this time.
There's no development plan at this time, and all of those decisions, traffic studies, driveways, access, turn lanes, median changes, all of that is gonna be determined with the site plan.
And that has to be done within a year? Is that what you're saying?
No, that does not have to be done within a year. That can be done, you know, within a couple months or never. I mean, this property could stay as it is forever, just with different zoning. There's nothing that says it has to redevelop.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep, step right up. Welcome.
My name is Edward Kegg. I live at 3605 Southwest 15th Street, which is right up there.
Great.
Right up there. It's peaceful and it's quiet. I work as an ICU
Okay.
nurse. I like the quiet. I work nights. So it's really nice. And it's peaceful. And I like walking. The other day I saw an osprey fly over. Saw the big gray wings. About a year ago I saw an eagle. I got deer that come across the street sometimes in the morning to eat. Coyotes last summer. Well, I don't care about those too much. And I had an alligator in my front yard. So that's going to change if I'm afraid of 200 people. I guess it's 120 or 200 people, I don't know. But we're not there yet is what I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And I read that and I thought, oh my God, that's going to change. So I'm glad to hear it's not set in stone.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my lifestyle. It's very quiet. It's very peaceful. And I like it there. And I've lived there for 25 years and lived in Gainesville since I was 6. I'm 65. So I've seen Gainesville change. I understand why. You
Yeah,
have to.
lots
You
of
can't
people say
go
that.
out. You have to go up.
Yep.
Thank you.
So any future development plan, you all should get notice about, and you can, you know, learn more about exactly what they're proposing. It may or may not be a residential project.
Oh, that's good to hear. Yeah. I'm Louetta Peterman. I love that neighborhood. I grew up in that neighborhood. My parents were the first to build when it was undeveloped, and lived there and grew up in the 50s, and chose to move back as an adult. And it's a gem. It's one of those reasons I like Gainesville. They're just these hidden little neighborhoods that are beautiful. We have gorgeous oaks. It is, as everybody's mentioned, a quiet place. My concern is there's a big difference between the Alachua County's designation of commercial. That's very reasonable. I mean, we've got commercial on that side of the street, and I have no problems with that. But the thought of what I would say to you is, if you live in a single-family dwelling, how would you like the possibility of this high-density mixed-use zoning? It backs up to our neighborhood. I just wish you would consider it personally if that were your situation, because it'll impact us dramatically. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, bringing it back to the board for comments or a motion. Anybody? Thoughts? Motion?
Gotta find my glass.
We heard both, but we'll do the land use first.
Madam Chair,
Mm-hmm.
I would move that the plan board approve petition LD 22000017 LUC based on the staff report today and the testimony we've heard here today.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hurst. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Hawkins opposed.
Oh, I heard an aye. Aye for no? Okay.
Okay, then a motion on the zoning, please.
Madam Chair, I move that the Plan Board approve petition LD 2020 to LD 22-000018 ZON based on the staff report we received today and the testimony we've heard today.
Thank you. A second? Second by Mr. Nay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins opposed. Okay, so this item, just for your information, will go to the city commission next. You should get a notice about that meeting, but feel free, they're the final decision makers, so feel free, and we would invite you to go share your thoughts with them as well. Okay?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for bearing with us tonight. Okay, so we continued the next two items, but Mr. Hawkins added an item that he wanted to discuss, the plan board rules. So, Mr. Hawkins, you want to kick off that discussion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think with one of the issues is if we've got 7 days for folks to register, and if we want the agenda to be out ahead of that, but if we don't want to move the agenda, I mean, we could make the agenda 10 days. You suggested earlier 7. I'm going to sort of split the baby and suggest that we request the City Commission amend Plan Board rules to require the Plan Board Secretary to publish the agenda 3 days before affected parties are required to register. And that's the motion, and then the City Commission can do with that. They can either make it 10 days, or they can change the affected party date later. That's the motion.
That's specific to the agenda, not necessarily the backup, or are you including the backup? Because I think there's a difference in the way it's been done in the past. Sometimes we've gotten just the agenda posted without all the backup items. So I think we need to address both of those. I would just recommend that.
What's your, I feel like you're a thought leader on the commission. I would like the backup to be available also. I mean, to me, that's important, but I don't want to make a motion that's not going to get a majority vote.
To be honest, I would like to see the agenda when notice is sent, because it's confirmed and they're noticing of things. So whether, I don't know, I deal with so many jurisdictions, I forget if it's 10 days or 14 days. I'd like the agenda to be at that point and the backup to be a minimum of a week.
Okay, so why don't, and that resolves our notice thing, because people can register to be an affected party before the backup's available.
Mm-hmm.
So I move that the Plan Board request the City Commission to amend our rules to require the Secretary to publish notice of the meeting, including the agenda, 14 calendar days prior to the hearing, and to make all backup or data supporting any application available 7 days prior to the hearing.
Okay.
Is that, I'm looking at staff to make sure that's clear. Sounds good?
Is that in line, and I'm looking at staff, is that in line with the city commission requirements? I think that it is. No? What are their requirements? They don't get things a week ahead?
No, the commission, I'm trying to think when the agenda gets published. The city commission agenda usually gets published usually about a week before the meeting. Trying to think when we do agenda review. It's usually about a week before. Like, I mean, with that would be with backup as well. So I think that's consistent. I mean, I think we could publish the draft agenda 14 days before. I don't think that that's an issue. That's something that I don't think anybody does right now.
At a minimum, though, it gives people notice of specific items coming up, and if nothing else, they can call up Juan and beat on him unmercifully.
Well, I like it coinciding with the notice too, because when they get the postcard in the mail, you get the postcard, you go to the website and you say, this postcard said there's a meeting, but the calendar in Legistar doesn't say there's a meeting. What's going on? Like, when they get the postcard, they should be able to go to the website and see the agenda. So I think it's important that those two are aligned. When the notices go out, when postcards are mailed, the agenda should be up, because somebody's gonna get that postcard and go to the website and not know what's going on.
The city needs to be less inscrutable.
Agreed.
So that's why I like the idea of the agenda being posted with the notice. Because I think people, I mean, they get, a lot of times it's, the gobbledygook that like introduces the item, right? And so most people don't know what this means, like petition PV dash, whatever. What does that mean? At least if they can go see that, there's an agenda and a meeting and, I understand that that's on the postcard too, but I think it just helps to have it listed on the website as an official meeting, not just an obscure postcard that they got in the mail.
If I may, Madam Chair, I think the suggestion is valid. And I think that staff would be amicable to that. We don't currently do this process, but I think that if we give staff maybe a couple of meetings to get this process on the way and see how it works, and if staff or for whatever reason it's not being met, then at that time we could entertain making it a rule. But I think giving us some time to kind of flesh out this new direction, I think would be appreciated.
Well, it may also take some conversation with the clerk's office, and if the software's changing, I mean, I definitely understand that there's some logistics to sort out, but we have brought this up, I don't even know how many times. I mean, we've brought this up as an issue at least 3 times. I mean, probably half a dozen. I mean, and so I do like the idea of having something more official on the record, because it's not getting resolved with just talking about it.
Could I?
Mr. Hawkins, go ahead.
I know that when I was in private practice, we used to give staff a hard time about getting things on agendas, right? And so I know that CHWs and your firm are like, Colin, what agenda are we going to get on?
I never
right?
bother you guys about agendas. Come on.
And I know that issues happen with staff availability, right? I can't remember if Mr. Castillo or Mr. Person shared with us that at least one of the things that delayed some material getting available to us this week. Having a policy in place, not only does it help us and create an objective standard, it protects staff. So y'all aren't in the position of trying to decide whether this time it should get on or not, right? We know we got it. The date's on the calendar. Everybody can look forward and know what their deadline is. And we can hold the applicants, the public, we can hold everybody to that, and it's nice and clear and objective. So, in my imagination, that actually, it's helpful to have a standard that we can all point to, so we know we don't have to worry about whether we met it or not, or for what reason. That's just the rule. We meet it or we don't, and we'll get on with it.
Yeah, and I think from my standpoint, I mean, I think that's what Tom is saying, I think is true. Like we do try to be as facilitative as possible in getting things on agendas, owing that, on the back end, there's a lot of money that's, and, a lot of logistics that go into that. And sometimes we get it in, and sometimes, we're waiting on stuff and, right up to the last minute. But I think that's fine. Like if I'm expressing any hesitation, it's only because it's not going to be me doing it. It's going to be my staff doing it. So that would be the only thing. And then a little bit of the I'm just not 100% sure what the Legistar replacement is going to be. So I'm a little bit leery about promising something that is not going to be something I can deliver on because it's outside of my hands. But I mean, I think I think it's reasonable, and I think from staff's perspective, that's fine. We'll work with that.
Okay, thanks.
Did we get a second?
No, not yet. So we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I have a second.
Okay, second from Mr. Ackerman. All of those in favor of referring the suggested change to the city commission to amend the plan board rules, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so we'll refer it to the city commission and they will do with it what they will, as, you know,
Send
they
it
do.
to the DRB.
Yeah. Okay, then we have information items. I don't know if you were gonna announce like the dates of this workshop, but I just have commentary on this. When it talks about the breakout discussion topics, on 2 of the 3 dates, it's not covering the exclusionary zoning, is that correct? They're only gonna talk about the exclusionary zoning at 1 of the 3 meetings.
Madam Chair, that's my understanding. It's just going to be the one meeting is going to be dedicated to that topic. The other meetings I think are going to be covering other housing topics. I'm sure we'll be there because we're involved in other housing topics as well, believe it or not, than just this one. But yeah, the meeting on the 17th is going to be exclusively for that. We are, I think, working with HRNA who did the IZ-EZ study for the city, and they're going to actually, I think, so far tentatively participate, provide a presentation, be there to answer questions. But yeah, that's what it is.
So I guess my concern is, you know, when we talked about this last month, we talked about having multiple meetings, maybe in different parts of the city, to discuss this issue because it's significant and it will be changing, you know, a huge number of people's property rights and throughout the city. So I don't think that one workshop on a Tuesday night that's difficult for people, you know, with children and things to attend is enough. I mean, I'm just going to put that on the record. I think that this is a very significant change that affects, you know, just tons of I mean, we saw the map. I mean, it's a huge proportion of the city land area, and to have one workshop focused on that, I do appreciate that it's focused on that, and it's not just like one of 20 topics that's happening, but I don't think that one meeting is enough. And, you know, I understand, you know, it's sort of centrally located, being at the Cotton Club, but we talked about wanting more than that as far as community input, and so I just want to put it on the record. You know, these items, my understanding is they're coming back to us, you know, a week or 2 after that meeting, at our regular May meeting, rather than June, which is what we had suggested. And we were hoping to have input from multiple community meetings when we heard these items again. We're gonna have input from one. I don't think that that's what we asked for. I don't, you know, I just want to put that on the record.
Here, here.
So, this is a little disappointing to me. I'm just putting that on the record, and I will probably refer back to that next month. Mr. Hawkins.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So I agree with what you said. I think that if we don't feel constrained to the way that the presentation to the current draft, if we like actually dig in and identify the ideas that are good and get rid of the ideas that are bad, I think we can get a petition that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And there, ideas are in the proposal that make sense, and there's a lot of ideas that I don't think make sense. And I think that if we, it's going to be hard, but I think that we can identify those areas where a majority of the plan board members agree. And it'll look a whole lot different. And I don't know if the commission will like it or not like it, but you know, at least at least we can do our job to give them good advice. But I agree with everything you said also. I would say it again, but it's late.
Yeah, the only other thing that I would say, and I'm going to reiterate this again from when we've talked about these items, if they're coming back next month, we've asked that they be broken up so that we can discuss them and digest them and process them, not as one huge petition, but 10 separate text amendments.
Yeah,
And
so you
I
want,
would
separate petition numbers.
separate text amendments that we can take a bite at a time. We want to talk about the occupancy limit separate from minor subdivisions, and minor subdivisions separate from the single-family land use and zoning, overhaul. So I think we want to see it divided up. That was my take on what the direction the board gave you. If we need to make a vote to that effect, I think someone up here will probably do that, but do we need to do that, or can staff handle dividing it up for
That's
us?
fine. I think one thing that I would like just to kind of make aware is a lot of these items are related to each other. When we do a presentation on each individual item, like it'll be good to know that there are pieces that will probably have to either be explained in a different presentation that's coming, or vice versa. But I think that staff can work on bringing separate petitions to you at our next meeting for each individual.
I think I agree with you that some of it's interrelated. We have the bedroom limit and the occupancy limit, right? Similar issues, but different places in the code. But I think, lot splits and minor subdivisions we can talk about separately, right? The overhaul of land use and zoning, we need to talk about on its own, right? That's huge. So, combining that with people worried about, unrelated people living together, it's just different issues. So, as much as you can parse it up, we understand that it's all interrelated, and but as much as you can parse it up would be great. And then hopefully we can pass some pieces on. We may have to send some back to staff for more work. But I'd like to see it come back to us as we asked. Great. Okay. Sorry to be harping on things. And the 10-acre limit would be great to see next month, not to give staff any more work.
We already have it written, so you've already asked the ones.
Any other information items? Okay. Any other member comments? Okay. Great. We will see you all. I believe the meeting is May 26th next month. With that, we will adjourn.